This is really a story about U.S. manufacturing from a past era of 25 years or so of decline to an upcoming era of vibrant opportunity. And it's a story that hasn't been fully written, where the trade deficit, since we entered the World Trade Organization, is an indication of how much manufacturing has been made overseas. It was the worst ever until 2021, when it was even worse. And then so far, 2022 has gotten worse over 2021.
Right.
That we now live in a world where we've invented it here, but made it there and then imported it back.
Okay.
And so many different sectors of the economy, that over 70,000 manufacturing sites have been offshored and abandoned, and we've torn apart the economic and social fabric of inner cities and rural communities. At the low point, we gave up 5.8 million middle-income manufacturing jobs lost, an additional 16 million indirect jobs lost, and we gutted the pathway to the middle class. So that's some of the consequences. How did we get there? We got there by US trade policy actively promoting industrial globalization and preferring lower consumer pricing and destroying US jobs and supply chains. And we got there by the behavior of countless people in government and industry and institutions, where they just assumed and followed the herd that it was the right thing to do to outsource to low-wage, poorly regulated countries. It was the right thing to downsize jobs, to cut costs and raise profit, and that the future of the American economy was to shift from manufacturing to a services economy. And everybody started following the herd, making decisions in that way. And so net effect, we gutted communities and left behind millions. We amplified social and economic inequity. We lost know-how. We lost the respect and pride in manufacturing careers. And we, by that I mean collectively, all of us, we forfeited a legacy of continued American prosperity, that we were handing off a future of more prosperity to our children and our grandchildren than the prosperity we experienced, and we forfeited that legacy. And so a generation later, US manufacturing in decline is the world that most people know. And hence, we refer to it as inevitable decline, because it's the mindset behind almost everybody's thinking in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And it's now essential that we rebuild manufacturing, and we have a window of opportunity where the forces are aligned. So two major areas of that. One is clarifying misperceptions. So a lot of misperceptions have come into focus in the last several years. The misperception that a service economy can result in a vibrant socio and economic economy for the United States. And what we've seen is the service economy has created 3 tiers of social structure in the United States, with a vast majority of people in the lowest tier being paid slightly over minimum wage. We had the misperception that global trade is on a level playing field, and that's now really obvious that that was a misassumption. We have the misperception that we can't compete. US companies are successfully competing against China-made products. We have the misperception of low pay, and the media continues to exaggerate that misperception, where we have probably 200,000 right now unfilled jobs in computer numerical control and machining, and those jobs are paying $80,000 or more. And yet in the trade press and in the general press, we keep publicizing that a manufacturing job only pays something like $35,000 to $40,000 a year, not much more than a warehousing job at Amazon. That manufacturing jobs are dirty, dumb, dangerous. Well, the few jobs that are like that are left, they're going away. And that manufacturing people who work on the factory floor, are second-class citizens. And we're the only industrialized country in the world that doesn't really value and respect the people who make goods on the factory floor. So these are all misperceptions, and they're getting clearer and clearer to people. And then we've got the disruptions that are happening. So we've got disruptions that started before COVID, and then we have disruptions that have really gotten amplified and exaggerated since COVID. So we've had awareness of inequity, environment becoming more mainstream, Industry 4.0. Those have been around for a while. But now the national security and health, the supply chain security and resiliency, and the skill shortage of now having over 800,000 open positions today in manufacturing, with the expectation that there'll be 2.2 million open positions in manufacturing by the year 2030. And again, there's no going back from these transitions. These are with us now. So how are we going to evolve manufacturing in the United States in order to flourish in this new world? So standing in the future of 2030, we've asked ourselves, what would signal a revitalized U.S. industry? And we came up with 4 real criteria that would do that. 50,000 world competitive companies, and people would say that's a 3 to 5 times increase over where the United States is today. 2 million additional employed, where currently we have 800,000 unfilled. A 30% reduction in the environmental footprint, and cutting the trade deficit in half, something like 500 million of additional goods made and purchased by U.S. consumers. So how is shifting the narrative from inevitable decline to vibrant opportunity actually going to realize a revitalization of U.S. manufacturing? The fundamental guiding principle for us is the future is happening now, and our job is to help spot that future and widely scale it. So there's a future happening now about revitalizing domestic supply chains. There's a future happening now about transforming U.S. competitiveness. There's a future happening now about inventing and making here in the United States. There's a future happening now about the new workforce that we have and the new values of the workforce. So this is not about being a futurist. This is about it's happening now, but it is not widely scaled. And therefore, when you look at manufacturing, manufacturing is still in decline because we haven't scaled things. So a deeper dive into what those opportunities are for individual companies. Think about this not as you're watching a TV program, but think about this as provoking areas of opportunity for your company to compete in the United States, for your company to compete against imports, for your company to compete in global markets. So when we look, there's a fresh look at reshoring in a whole lot of different dimensions, but in particular, security and resilience of the supply chain and environmental accountability are now becoming mainstream issues. And the cost gap is shrunk significantly. The total cost of labor is only about 12% of the total expense of a product. And then when you look at that, even if you cut that in half by offshoring it, you're still not fundamentally altering the economics of your product. So the decision to offshore because of lower labor costs is no longer a valid presumption, as we talked about earlier. Then we've got this whole area of the visible connected supply chain that is becoming critically important. I know my suppliers, I know the capabilities of my suppliers, I know where they're located, I know the vulnerabilities that my supply chain has, and that I have a track and traceability of my product up and down the supply chain. So that visible connected supply chain is becoming another area of opportunity, as well as the area of opportunity that just comes from consumers realizing and becoming much more preferential towards American-made products, as long as those products, they'll pay a premium, but they won't pay an exorbitant premium. Then we've got, how do we transform company competitiveness? So we can transform company competitiveness, one, through advanced manufacturing technology that improves the productivity, the agility, and the innovation of manufacturing operations. We can improve company competitiveness through Industry 4.0, because Industry 4.0 is now giving us trusted data and agile decision-making. And we can improve company competitiveness through lean manufacturing, with continuous improvement, waste reduction, and employee empowerment. Now, all of these things are already happening. They just have not yet been scaled from early adopters to mainstream. So I just want to keep coming back that the challenge is not one of being a futurist. The challenge is one of thinking at scale of how do we actually scale these proven things to the mainstream. A lot of the attention has been on reshoring, but reshoring is only part of the solution. The other big part of the solution is what we invent here and make here. And if we look at electrification of cars, solar and wind power generation, transmission lines, batteries, there's hundreds of billions of dollars of manufactured goods involved in the electrification of everything. Then there's the Internet of everything. And everything the Internet touches involves manufactured goods. So when we talk about the number of devices connected to the Internet, and we talk about that number scaling exponentially, we're also talking about scaling exponentially manufactured goods that are those connected devices. When we talk about sustainability technology, we're talking again about hundreds of billions of dollars in manufactured goods for sustainability technology and clean energy, in water systems, in carbon capture, in waste conversion, agriculture, energy storage. And why do we think billions? Well, venture capitalists are already investing billions of dollars every year and have been for the past several years. And venture capitalists, where the money from VCs goes, is a pretty good indication as to where the growth opportunities are going to be. And they're investing not only in IT and data-related capabilities, they're investing in manufactured technology. Then we look at smart cities, and the same thing. All the things that it's going to take to make cities smart, housing smart, streets smart, safety smart, are all of those are going to result in hundreds of billions of dollars of new additional manufactured goods, all right? And we want it invented here, made here. So that's where the big opportunity from competitiveness comes from. And then there's this big opportunity around the 2020s workforce and management. And there are four main sectors that we kind of see that playing out. The first is the rise of the new collar worker. All right, so the rise of the new collar worker, all right, which are skilled technical people that don't require a college degree. We have the augmented worker. So the augmented worker enables people who traditionally have had less skill experience to perform at a level of a highly skilled worker because they're being stepped through things. It's like being able to do things on your car by being able to pull up a YouTube example, all right, of making a small repair to your car. And you're able to do things that in the past you had to take to an automotive mechanic. There's a whole area of diversity, equity, and inclusion that is going to drive tremendous workforce change and changes in how we manage. And finally, there's the values of the millennials and the Gen Z demographic that are digital natives, and they're demanding a digital workplace, and they're demanding a workplace in which they're highly engaged and highly empowered. So there's this future of vibrant opportunity happening now. We're spotting them, we're starting to scale them. In addition to the 4 that I just emphasized, there's the whole arena of continuing to invent things here, and the way that the government is funding invention, but the way a lot of inventors groups are funding their own inventions. There's vibrant communities with manufacturing clusters being developed and then scaled in the United States. And this whole area of nudging national competitiveness and vitality through policy. So when we look at what's the missing ingredient behind making all of this happen, the missing ingredient is an unprecedented collaboration. We challenge the audience to change their mindset, because you can have the mindset of inevitable decline, or you can have a mindset of vibrant opportunity, in which case what we've just talked about should pique your interest and your curiosity about how your organization could play into and benefit from this manufacturing future of vibrant opportunity. And then just a word on what Industry Reimagined is as a nonprofit, all right, that manufacturing in inevitable decline is not a fact, it's a choice, and it's the choice that everyone that we're talking to can make. And once you choose that view of vibrant opportunity, you start to see opportunities are everywhere.